Imagine a place where the knowledge of the entire ancient world was gathered in one place, a place where scholars from distant lands traveled thousands of miles, carrying scrolls filled with ideas, discoveries, and stories of forgotten civilizations. This place once existed in the great city of Alexandria in ancient Egypt. It was known as the legendary Library of Alexandria. Many historians believe it once held hundreds of thousands of ancient scrolls. Within its halls, scholars studied mathematics, astronomy, philosophy, and medicine. Some believe the library may even have contained knowledge that was far ahead of its time, knowledge that could completely change our understanding of history. But then, something happened. Fires, wars, and centuries of chaos slowly erased this incredible place from history, and with it, countless scrolls and secrets vanished forever. To understand the library, we must first understand the city that birthed it. Alexandria was not just a city. It was a vision, a dream carved from sand and ambition by Alexander the Great. After conquering the known world, Alexander sought to build a city that would outshine all others, a crossroads where cultures and peoples could converge. When he first set eyes on the ideal harbor along the Mediterranean coast, he saw more than stones and palm trees. He saw a meeting place for the intellect of the world, a city that could rival Athens, Babylon, and Thebes. Within a few decades, Alexandria had become a jewel of the ancient world. Its streets were lined with grand colonnades and marble statues. Merchants from Asia Minor, Greece, and Africa brought exotic spices, precious metals, and rare artifacts. But it was not commerce alone that defined Alexandria. It was knowledge. Scholars and astronomers flocked to the city like moths to a flame. At the heart of Alexandria's intellectual ambition lay the royal quarter, an area brimming with temples, lecture halls, and the earliest academies. Ptolemy I, one of Alexander's generals, recognized that true immortality would come from preserving the wisdom of every civilization under the sun. He envisioned a repository that would house all human knowledge scrolls and codices from Greece, Egypt, Babylon, and beyond. Walking through the city streets, one can almost hear the murmur of voices speaking in dozens of languages. Greek philosophers debated with Egyptian priests. Mathematicians scribbled equations on papyrus, while astronomers charted the movement of the stars. Alexandria was a living organism, pulsing with curiosity and ambition. The real treasure was the creation of knowledge that would ripple through centuries. And yet, for all its grandeur, Alexandria was not without tension. It was a city of contrasts, where palaces stood beside bustling docks. Political intrigue simmered beneath the surface, and the ambitions of kings, priests, and scholars often collided. Even the library itself was an experiment, fragile, brilliant, and dangerously dependent on the whims of rulers. The legendary city of Alexandria was more than a backdrop. It was a character in the story of human curiosity. Here, in this city of marble and sunlight, the Library of Alexandria began its life, not merely as a building, but as a promise of knowledge, of secrets unearthed, of ideas that could illuminate the human mind like the sun rising over the Mediterranean. As we prepare to step through its grand gates and into the hushed corridors lined with scrolls, we must ask ourselves, what wonders awaited? What wisdom, long buried beneath centuries of sand and fire, once shimmered in the heart of Alexandria? The story of the library is the story of a city that dared to capture the cosmos in words. A city where the human desire to know truly, deeply, endlessly, was as vast as the Mediterranean itself. From the bustling streets and sunlit harbors of Alexandria, we move toward a quieter, more sacred space. This was the heart of a dream that would reshape human history, the library. The city had been built on ambition and curiosity, but it was one ruler's vision that transformed Alexandria into the epicenter of ancient knowledge. Ptolemy I Soter, a man both cunning and intellectually ambitious, understood that power extended beyond armies and territories. To him, true dominion came from knowledge, and he sought to gather all of it in one place. The birth of the library was not an accident. It was a deliberate act, meticulously planned and executed. In the royal quarter, hidden behind high walls, a series of grand halls and reading rooms began to rise. Marble columns stretched skyward, their surfaces engraved with inscriptions in Greek and hieroglyphics. Scrolls, carefully rolled and labeled, filled enormous shelves carved from imported cedar, their fragrant aroma mingling with the scent of ink and papyrus. Each room had a purpose, one for astronomy, one for medicine, one for philosophy, and others dedicated to the preservation of human thought. What set this library apart from all others was its ambition. The Library of Alexandria sought to encompass everything, a central hub where knowledge from many civilizations could coexist. Traders arriving by ship were instructed to surrender texts from foreign lands. Scrolls from every corner of the known world were copied, catalogued, and stored, as if swallowing the intellect of entire civilizations. The library was part of the Mauseon, a sanctuary dedicated to the Muses, where scholars could live, teach, and study in peace. This was not merely a repository of scrolls. It was a living, breathing center of intellectual life. Scholars were offered housing, food, and stipends in exchange for their contributions. In its halls, mathematicians debated geometry, astronomers plotted the heavens, and physicians documented treatments from across the world. The library became a magnet for brilliant minds, a place where curiosity was nurtured and discoveries could flourish. But the birth of the library was not without tension. Collecting knowledge required diplomacy and sometimes coercion. Ships arriving from distant lands were searched, and scribes meticulously copied every scroll of importance. No matter the language, no matter the origin, every fragment of insight was seen as precious. This pursuit brought Babylonian star charts, Egyptian medical papyri, and Greek philosophical treatises to Alexandria. It is here, in the infancy of the library, that we glimpse the first hints of its power and its fragility. For all its grandeur, it depended entirely on the rulers who oversaw it. Its survival was tied to politics and fortune. One misstep, one change in leadership, could threaten the entire collection. And yet, for decades, it thrived. The scrolls multiplied, and Alexandria became a lighthouse of intellect. Perhaps the most extraordinary aspect was the audacity of its vision. To gather all knowledge was a philosophical statement. It suggested that human understanding could be universal, that the wisdom of distant civilizations could be connected. It challenged the limits of human imagination, declaring that the cosmos could be captured, catalogued, and studied. As the library opened its doors, the world seemed smaller, yet infinitely more mysterious. Each scroll represented a doorway into another civilization, another mind, another way of understanding the universe. And yet, the library's brilliance carried a warning. The more knowledge it contained, the more tempting it became. for in the act of gathering everything, it sowed the seeds of potential loss that would echo through history. The birth of the great library was not just the creation of a building, it was the birth of an idea. As we step into its halls, we realize what was born here would challenge every assumption about what humanity could know, and perhaps what it could lose. The Library of Alexandria was not born out of mere curiosity or pride, was born from a vision so audacious it challenged the very limits of human ambition. Ptolemy I Soter understood something that few rulers in history had grasped. Knowledge is power. But this was not the brute power of armies or walls. It was the subtler, more enduring power of understanding the world, of seeing patterns where others saw chaos, of capturing the wisdom of generations before it faded into oblivion. The creation of the library was a deliberate act, a statement to history that the intellect of humankind could transcend the fragile boundaries of time. In the centuries before Alexandria, civilizations had preserved knowledge in fragments. Temples, palaces, and academies held scattered and incomplete collections. One fire, one conquest, one neglectful ruler could erase centuries of thought. Ptolemy envisioned a central vault, a sanctuary of wisdom that would bring together the scattered threads of human understanding into a tapestry of clarity. He sought to assemble the totality of human knowledge, from astronomy to medicine, from mathematics to poetry. The library was also a reflection of Alexandria's unique position at a crossroads of continents, cultures, and civilizations. Ships from the Aegean, the Levant, and the Nile Delta brought not just goods, but ideas. Traders, pilgrims, and scholars converged in Alexandria, carrying scrolls written in languages that spanned the known world. Ptolemy realized that this convergence of minds was an opportunity too precious to waste. To gather knowledge from every land, to copy, catalog, and preserve it, was a way to assert dominance over the Mediterranean. But the library's creation was more than a strategic move. It was, in many ways, a philosophical experiment. What would happen if the knowledge of the world were concentrated in one place? Could humanity's collective wisdom reveal truths that no single civilization had discovered on its own? The library was a laboratory for the mind, a grand stage for the greatest ideas to meet, clash, and evolve. The motivations were complex. There was prestige. Alexandria wanted to rival Athens and Babylon as the intellectual capital of the world. And there was ambition, the intoxicating, almost hubristic desire to achieve immortality through the preservation of knowledge. Every scroll copied, every papyrus catalogued, was a step toward defying death itself, ensuring that ideas could survive long after rulers, generals, and even civilizations vanished. Yet, hidden beneath these noble intentions was a subtle tension. The library's mission implied an almost obsessive control over information. To gather everything, the library had to collect, copy, and sometimes confiscate texts from visiting ships. The act of creation here was inseparable from the act of power. The more knowledge it held, the more influence it wielded. And so, the library was born as both a sanctuary and a statement. It was a declaration that knowledge could be preserved, that curiosity could triumph over chaos. It was a bold gamble, for the more the library collected, the greater the risk that its treasures could be lost. Yet, for those first scholars, there was a sense of awe. Here was a place where the world's wisdom converged. In essence, the library was created to challenge time. to capture the fleeting sparks of genius before they vanished into oblivion. It was an act of preservation, of ambition, and of hope, an audacious attempt to give humanity a chance at understanding the cosmos. As its halls filled with the whispers of scholars and the rustle of scrolls, one could sense something extraordinary taking shape, a force so potent that it would echo across millennia, shaping the imagination of every civilization that dared to dream of knowledge. The Library of Alexandria was more than a building filled with scrolls. It was a living, breathing organism, animated by the minds that walked its corridors. Scholars arrived from every corner of the ancient world, drawn by whispers of a place where knowledge was gathered like a treasure, where ideas collided and coalesced in ways that had never been possible before. To enter the library was to step into a realm where intellect itself seemed sacred. These scholars were visionaries, dreamers, and obsessives who devoted their lives to the pursuit of understanding. Some were astronomers who spent nights charting the heavens, mapping stars and planets with instruments crafted by their own hands. Others were physicians, poring over papyrus scrolls filled with remedies from Egypt, Babylon, and India, attempting to decode the mysteries of life, death, and healing. Philosophers wandered the halls, engaging in debates that stretched for hours, exploring the nature of existence and the intricacies of human behavior. Visitors arrived from as far away as Persia and Mesopotamia, carrying scrolls in languages that seemed alien and scripts that defied immediate understanding. Each scholar became both a student and a teacher, sharing knowledge, challenging assumptions, and absorbing ideas that could transform their understanding of the world. Imagine a Babylonian astronomer adjusting star charts, while a Greek mathematician scribbled calculations, Egyptian priests translating hieroglyphics alongside philosophers. The library was a collision of minds, a crucible of intellect where civilizations met, mingled, and sometimes clashed, but always advanced. Callimachus, the poet and librarian, meticulously catalogued tens of thousands of scrolls, developing a system that would influence library science for centuries. Eratosthenes, the mathematician and geographer, walked these halls, calculating the circumference of the earth with astonishing precision. Hero of Alexandria invented mechanisms that hinted at technology far ahead of its age, devices that seemed almost magical. The life of a scholar was rigorous, competitive, and sometimes perilous. Scrolls had to be copied exactly. Errors could lead to reprimand. The library demanded excellence, and it rewarded brilliance, but it also left no room for mediocrity. They were aware that they were custodians of something greater than themselves, the collective wisdom of humanity. The Library of Alexandria, in its golden age, was the minds of the greatest thinkers of the ancient world brought together under one roof. As we walk through its imagined corridors, one question lingers. What knowledge may have been lost forever when the fires came? The heartbeat of the Library of Alexandria was not its marble halls or towering columns, it was the scrolls. Thousands upon thousands of them, each one a vessel carrying the essence of a civilization's memory. The scholars of Alexandria did not merely study these scrolls. They revered them as if the fibers of papyrus held the pulse of human curiosity. But these were no ordinary scrolls. They were treasures gathered from across the known world, each a fragment of a story that spanned cultures. From the bustling ports of Alexandria, ships arrived, carrying gifts and tribute from distant lands. Greek philosophers sent manuscripts detailing the latest advances in geometry and metaphysics. Egyptian priests delivered sacred texts on astronomy, medicine, and rituals older than memory. From Babylon came star charts that predicted celestial events with astonishing accuracy, while India contributed mathematical techniques and philosophical treatises. The library's custodians employed teams of scribes whose sole task was to copy every scroll that arrived. Ships were searched, foreign texts confiscated, and duplicates made, ensuring the original knowledge remained intact while scholars could study the copies. This relentless drive to acquire and preserve was a hallmark of Alexandria's ambition. Nothing was too trivial, no text too obscure. Every culture, every language, every idea mattered, because each scroll was a thread in the tapestry of human understanding. Some scrolls were practical, guiding rulers and merchants. Others were abstract, exploring the nature of the cosmos or the mysteries of the human mind. There were scrolls that taught geometry, showing how triangles and circles could unlock the secrets of space. Others contained medical treatments, describing remedies for ailments that centuries later would still baffle doctors. There were maps that charted distant lands with startling accuracy, and astronomical tables that allowed predictions of the motions of the stars. Yet among these were others that whispered of forbidden knowledge, ideas so radical they would have seemed magical to many who beheld them. Texts describing mechanical devices capable of motion without human touch, and chemical formulas that hinted at transformations far ahead of their time. The library did not discriminate. Every idea, no matter how peculiar, was considered worthy of preservation. The variety of languages was staggering. Greek, Egyptian, hieroglyphs, Aramaic, Sanskrit, and Phoenician filled the shelves. Translators worked tirelessly, decoding scripts from civilizations that had long since faded into obscurity. For every scroll copied, there was a chance that its wisdom would spark a revolution of thought or quietly vanish into obscurity. But the scrolls were more than repositories of knowledge. They were a bridge across time. They carried the voices of civilizations long gone, enabling a scholar to converse with an astronomer or mathematician from centuries earlier. Each scroll was a whisper from the past, a fragment of a world that might otherwise have been lost. And yet, as the collection grew, so did the stakes. With every scroll acquired, the library became a more powerful and more vulnerable repository. What if ideas could challenge rulers, disrupt religions, or change the balance of power? In the silent aisles of the library, each scroll held potential, the potential to illuminate, to teach, to inspire, and the potential to vanish forever. The scrolls were the lifeblood of Alexandria's ambition, the tangible proof that knowledge could be gathered, preserved, and shared. And as the scholars moved among them, they participated in a grand experiment, an audacious attempt to capture the sum of human understanding. Among the countless scrolls that filled the shelves of the Library of Alexandria, none were more foundational or more illuminating than those that came from Egypt and Greece. These civilizations, separated by time and tradition, yet connected by curiosity, formed the pillars of ancient knowledge, each offering unique insights. To walk through the library was to walk through the soul of two great civilizations, their wisdom preserved for generations yet to come. Egypt had been a cradle of knowledge for millennia before the library's birth. Priests and scribes recorded observations of the stars, rivers, and the human body. Medical papyri detailed surgical techniques, herbal remedies, and treatments for ailments ranging from fractures to infections. Astronomical texts charted the movements of planets and stars, allowing Egyptians to align temples and predict the flooding of the Nile with remarkable accuracy. Every measurement, every observation, every ritual was encoded in hieroglyphs, waiting for scholars in Alexandria to decipher its secrets. It was not only the practical sciences that Egypt contributed. Philosophy and spirituality permeated the scrolls, intertwining morality, mathematics, and cosmology. The Egyptians sought harmony in all things, believing that understanding the patterns of nature was essential to living in balance with the cosmos. In the library, these scrolls became windows into a world where science and spirituality coexisted, guiding scholars toward insights that transcended simple observation. Meanwhile, Greece provided a different lens, rational, analytical, and daringly speculative. Greek scholars had begun to probe the world not only for practical purposes, but to uncover the principles underlying reality itself. Philosophers like Plato and Aristotle had written extensively on ethics, politics, metaphysics, and natural philosophy. Mathematicians such as Euclid and Pythagoras had developed theories that revealed patterns in geometry, numbers, and harmony. In the library, these two traditions did not exist in isolation. Egyptian meticulousness met Greek reason, observation intertwined with speculation. Scholars compared hieroglyphic records of stellar movements with Greek theories of celestial mechanics. Mathematical treatises were tested against Egyptian architectural precision. Medical scrolls were scrutinized alongside philosophical debates on the nature of life. This cross-pollination of ideas created a fertile intellectual environment, allowing new insights to emerge that might never have arisen within a single civilization. Yet there was a tension in this blending of knowledge. Greek scholars often approached Egyptian texts with a mix of awe and skepticism. Egyptian priests, in turn, guarded their sacred knowledge jealously, aware that its power could be misused if misunderstood. The library became the mediator between these two worlds, a place where translation and synthesis were acts of cultural negotiation. From astronomy to mathematics, medicine to metaphysics, the scrolls offered insights into both the practical and the philosophical. They allowed the scholars of Alexandria to predict eclipses and understand the human body in unprecedented detail. Every discovery built upon another, forming chains of thought that stretched across civilizations and centuries. It was in this fusion that the true genius of the library emerged. Scholars were not simply storing information, they were creating a new way of thinking. The more they learned, the more tantalizing the unknown became, hinting at secrets still beyond reach, waiting to challenge the minds of those bold enough to seek them. Within the hallowed halls of the Library of Alexandria, knowledge was not merely preserved, was transformed. Scrolls from Greece, Egypt, Babylon, and beyond converged in this singular hub, giving birth to a flourishing of mathematics and science. To step into these chambers was to enter a laboratory of the mind, where the boundaries of reality were tested and redefined. Mathematics was the language of Alexandria. Here, Pythagorean theory met Egyptian geometry, and Euclid's axioms were scrutinized by scholars seeking patterns in nature. From the angles of pyramids to the curves of celestial orbits, numbers revealed the invisible scaffolding of reality. Euclid's elements, meticulously copied and debated, became a touchstone for scholars attempting to understand spatial relationships. proportions, and harmony. These geometric principles guided architects in designing temples, harbors, and monumental structures that would withstand the tests of time. Science in Alexandria was a bold, experimental endeavor. Scholars conducted observations of the heavens with remarkable precision, charting stars and planets. Mechanics and engineering flourished as inventors experimented with levers, pulleys, and rudimentary machines, seeking to harness the laws of motion. Medicine, too, advanced. Egyptian papyri offered knowledge of anatomy and surgical techniques, while Greek rationalism encouraged systematic observation. Physicians dissected cadavers to understand the inner workings of the human body, cross-referencing findings with texts from distant lands. Disease was studied not only as a divine punishment, but as a biological phenomenon, a revolutionary approach in a world still steeped in superstition. Even natural sciences flourished. Scholars collected specimens and classified plants and animals according to observable traits. Every discovery reinforced the notion that knowledge was interconnected, that math, astronomy, and medicine were threads in the same grand tapestry. Yet with every discovery came a tensionous, subtle awareness that the library held secrets that could challenge prevailing beliefs. Astronomical calculations suggested a universe more vast than previously imagined. The pursuit of science was exhilarating, but it was also perilous. The library was alive with debate. Each scholar's pursuit reinforced a collective ambition to map the heavens and illuminate the mysteries of life. Alexandria became a beacon, a city where the mind could soar beyond the boundaries of its age, glimpsing the infinite and the eternal. As the scrolls were read, one could feel the tension of possibility. Knowledge could reveal unimaginable wonders, or it could vanish in an instant. The Library of Alexandria was the crucible in which the ancient world attempted to understand itself, raising questions that would haunt thinkers for millennia. High above the marble halls and endless scrolls of the Library of Alexandria, the heavens themselves awaited discovery. Ancient astronomy was more than a pursuit of curiosity, was a window into the universe, a way to glimpse the forces that shaped the cosmos. In the library, astronomers worked tirelessly, their eyes and instruments trained on the night sky, seeking to understand the movements of stars and planets. The Egyptians had long observed the stars, tying celestial movements to the rhythms of the Nile and the cycles of life itself. Priests had recorded star charts and constellations with meticulous precision, tracking the rising and setting of sacred stars that heralded the flooding of the river. Within Alexandria, these ancient observations were preserved, copied, and studied alongside the growing corpus of Greek astronomical texts. Greek scholars, with their philosophical rigor, brought a new dimension to the study of the stars. Figures such as Hipparchus and later Ptolemy sought not only to map the heavens, but to understand their underlying order. They devised models to predict eclipses and proposed theories about the spherical nature of the Earth and the intricate dance of celestial bodies. In the shadowed halls of the library, astronomers cross-referenced Egyptian star charts with Greek theories, combining empirical observation with mathematical models. Instruments such as the astrolabe and armillary sphere were refined, allowing scholars to measure angles and track stars with astonishing accuracy. Night after night, observations were recorded on papyrus, inked with the hope that these calculations might reveal patterns invisible to the naked eye. The library was a crucible for radical ideas. Some scrolls suggested that planets moved in complex orbits, and that the Earth was a small sphere, at a time when much of the world believed in a static universe. Alexandria's astronomers were glimpsing a far grander, more ordered reality. Astronomy in Alexandria was intertwined with philosophy, theology, and the human quest for meaning. The library became a cosmic laboratory, a place where questions of fate and the divine intersected with calculations and diagrams. Every star chart was a meditation, every planetary prediction a reflection on the infinite, reminding humanity of its potential for comprehension. Some scrolls hinted at even stranger possibilities, celestial phenomena unexplained by contemporary knowledge, accounts of comets or supernova. Could patterns hidden in the night sky unlock insights into mathematics, medicine, or even technologies yet undiscovered? As the centuries passed, the astronomical knowledge housed in Alexandria influenced every field of study, from navigation to architecture. Scholars trained in the library carried this wisdom to distant lands, connecting civilizations across the Mediterranean and beyond. Yet, the fragility of this knowledge loomed ominously. One fire, one invasion, could erase centuries of celestial observation in a single night. The study of the stars in Alexandria reminds us of the library's dual nature, a sanctuary of enlightenment and a repository of perilous treasures. Every observation was a triumph, every theory a beacon, and every scroll a testament to human ambition. As we gaze upward, imagining the astronomers of Alexandria, one question lingers. What secrets of the cosmos were recorded, only to vanish? Within the Library of Alexandria, the scrolls did more than record facts. They captured the whispers of human thought, the bold speculations of minds, unafraid to challenge convention. Here, philosophy was not an abstract pursuit. It was a living, breathing dialogue with the universe, a search for truth that transcended politics, borders, and even time itself. The philosophers who studied in these hallowed halls were among the most daring thinkers the ancient world had ever seen, their curiosity rivaled only by the vastness of the library's collection. Greek thought dominated much of the philosophical discourse, but Alexandria's library created a rare synthesis of ideas. Platonists debated with Stoics. Followers of Aristotle dissected theories of logic and ethics, while Egyptian priests shared insights into cosmology and the nature of the soul. Philosophers were not isolated scholars. They were part of a dynamic community, their arguments echoing through the corridors lined with thousands of scrolls, each debate a spark against the tinder of human curiosity. The library offered philosophers an unprecedented advantage: access to texts from civilizations they would otherwise never encounter. Babylonian treatises on astronomy challenged Greek cosmology. Egyptian writings on the afterlife prompted debates about morality and the soul. And Indian texts introduced mathematical and metaphysical concepts that stretched imagination beyond familiar boundaries. Every scroll became a lens through which philosophers could question assumptions, rethink principles, and explore ideas that would shape the foundations of knowledge. One can imagine the intensity of these debates. A philosopher pacing the marble floors, gesturing passionately as he argued the nature of reality. A young scholar crouched over papyrus, translating hieroglyphs and discovering correspondences between Egyptian mathematics and Greek logic. Heated discussions on ethics might continue late into the night, accompanied by the soft rustle of scrolls and the distant hum of scholars. In Alexandria, thought was kinetic, alive, restless, and impossible to contain. Philosophers at the library did not shy away from radical ideas. They asked questions that could unsettle rulers, challenge traditions, or even threaten prevailing religious doctrines. What is the nature of the soul? Is the universe governed by chance or order? Can humans access knowledge beyond their senses? These were not hypothetical musings. They were profound inquiries, each answer recorded and debated. Among the most influential philosophers were those who straddled multiple disciplines, figures who combined mathematics, astronomy, and ethics, explored the universe as an interconnected system. Their work blurred boundaries. A calculation of planetary motion could inform ethical theories. The library's vast collection made such synthesis possible, offering a rare opportunity for thinkers to transcend the limitations of their own time. Yet, even within these intellectual triumphs, tension simmered. Philosophy encouraged questioning, but too much speculation could be dangerous. Some rulers tolerated debate, others feared it. Scholars had to navigate a delicate balance, advancing knowledge while avoiding the wrath of power. Every philosophical insight, every daring theory, carried the weight of risk alongside the promise of enlightenment. The philosophers of Alexandria understood that their work was part of a continuum of conversation, stretching across civilizations and centuries. They were not merely preserving knowledge, they were participating in the creation of wisdom, shaping the intellectual legacy of humanity in ways that would echo long after the library's walls crumbled. And so, the library was more than a repository of facts. It was a crucible for the human mind. The philosophers who walked its corridors probed the limits of reason, confronted the mysteries of existence, and glimpsed truths. Their discoveries and questions became part of a vast tapestry of thought, one that would inspire generations to come, and one that might hold secrets still waiting to be uncovered in the lost scrolls of Alexandria. Beneath the orderly rows of scrolls, in the hushed corners of the Library of Alexandria, there lay secrets that few dared to study openly. Beyond mathematics, astronomy, and philosophy, there existed texts that whispered of knowledge strange, forbidden, and dangerous. These were scrolls that hinted at truths the world might not be ready to understand. These were not merely scholarly works. They were repositories of ideas that challenged perception, defied conventional wisdom, and sometimes bordered on the mystical. Some scrolls contained mechanical instructions so advanced that their principles would not be recreated for centuries. Devices powered by water, air, or hidden levers, capable of motion and automation, were described in meticulous detail. Engineers and inventors, poring over these diagrams, could imagine machines that seemed to anticipate robotics and complex mechanics. This was long before the Industrial Revolution would bring such inventions to life. Scholars whispered that some designs were too ambitious to ever function fully. Yet the very act of imagining them expanded the boundaries of possibility. Other texts delved into natural phenomena in ways that blurred the line between science and magic. There were treatises on rare minerals and chemical reactions that hinted at processes resembling modern chemistry or even alchemy. Herbal remedies and potions were described with precision, some appearing miraculous in their effects. Ancient physicians recorded treatments that could heal wounds or cure illnesses thought untreatable. Yet the knowledge was often shrouded in symbolic language, as if to protect it from misuse or misunderstanding. Even more unsettling were scrolls that explored the cosmos in ways that challenged established beliefs. Some described theories of celestial motion that suggested the Earth was not the center of the universe, while others hinted at unknown forces influencing planetary paths. Philosophical treatises speculated on dimensions beyond human perception and on the existence of life elsewhere in the cosmos. These ideas were revolutionary, terrifying even, hinting that the ancients had glimpsed truths humanity would only rediscover millennia later. There were also texts concerned with the human mind, consciousness, and memory. Scholars documented techniques for enhancing perception, recording experiences, and even influencing thought. Some scrolls were practical, aimed at improving memory, while others explored dreams, visions, and altered states of awareness. Ancient philosophers debated these works with caution, recognizing that knowledge could be both illuminating and dangerous. The strangeness of these scrolls extended to history itself. Some contained accounts of civilizations unknown elsewhere. Others described astronomical events and natural catastrophes with uncanny accuracy. Scholars often found themselves at a crossroads between skepticism and wonder, uncertain whether they were reading history or prophecy. The library's custodians understood the power of these texts. Some scrolls were restricted, studied only by the most trusted scholars. The very presence of this knowledge underscored the library's role as both sanctuary and guardian of humanity's most profound mysteries. It is said that the allure of these strange scrolls drew some scholars into obsession, translating and experimenting night after night. The library was a place where ideas could flourish or be lost forever in the shuffle of its vast collections. The Library of Alexandria was a repository of the unknown, where the human mind flirted with secrets too dangerous for the world. The strange knowledge hidden in its scrolls reminds us that there are depths yet unexplored and mysteries yet unsolved. These are truths that could change everything we believe about the past, the present, and perhaps the future itself. Within the towering shelves of the Library of Alexandria, among scrolls of philosophy, mathematics, and astronomy, lay a collection of knowledge that was vital. The secrets of ancient medicine were more than mere guides to remedies. They were portals into the minds of civilizations that had grappled with life and death. In these scrolls, physicians, herbalists, and scholars documented cures, diagnosis, and surgical techniques that were astonishingly advanced for their time. Egyptian medical papyri formed the backbone of this knowledge. Doctors had meticulously observed the human body, recording symptoms and treatments with scientific genius. Some scrolls detailed complex surgical procedures, from draining abscesses to setting broken bones, accompanied by instructions on antiseptic herbs and salves. Others cataloged the use of plants and minerals, describing their properties in ways that often mirrored practices rediscovered only centuries later. But Alexandria's physicians did not rely solely on Egyptian wisdom. The library allowed Greek medical thought to merge with these traditions. Hippocrates' principles of prognosis and clinical reasoning were compared alongside herbal remedies and empirical treatments from distant lands. Physicians debated causes of disease, moving beyond superstition to investigate natural explanations. Illness was analyzed as a phenomenon with patterns and origins. Remarkably, Some scrolls even contained instructions on surgical instruments and techniques that would have been considered revolutionary. Needles, scalpels, and forceps are described with such detail that one can almost visualize a physician carefully performing a procedure in a dimly lit room. Certain texts suggested methods for controlling bleeding, managing pain, and even attempting reconstructive surgery practices that would not become commonplace until millennia later. Yet medicine in Alexandria extended beyond the physical. Scholars explored the connections between the body, mind, and environment. Treatments often incorporated diet, exercise, and mental discipline, reflecting a holistic approach to health and anticipating modern psychosomatic medicine. Some scrolls recorded observations about the impact of emotions and stress on illness. Others suggested spiritual interventions to complement practical treatment. The library's medical knowledge also included remarkable insights into epidemiology and public health. Physicians documented outbreaks and analyzed patterns. Ancient texts described quarantine, sanitation practices, and water purification techniques, revealing how deeply scholars were aware of environmental influences. In some ways, these early insights foreshadowed concepts that would only be formalized centuries later, showing a deep concern for community safety. Yet, for all its brilliance, this medical knowledge was precarious. Many scrolls contained rare treatments whose efficacy could be uncertain if misapplied. The wisdom of the library depended on the careful transmission of knowledge. Every scroll copied was a fragile thread in the chain of human survival. The secrets of ancient medicine remind us that Alexandria was not merely a center of intellectual curiosity, it was a sanctuary for life itself. Scholars preserved the wisdom of generations, blending observation and experience to illuminate the mysteries of the human body. The library became a beacon of hope, healing, and human ingenuity, safeguarding the knowledge that might save lives long after the city fell into legend. In the quiet corridors where physicians once studied, we sense a profound truth. Knowledge is power, but knowledge of life is sacred. Within the lost scrolls of Alexandria, there may still lie cures and insights that humanity has yet to rediscover, hidden secrets waiting for a future daring enough to unlock them. Beyond the careful observations of medicine and astronomy, beyond the philosophies that debated existence itself, the Library of Alexandria held scrolls that hinted at a different kind of power. Knowledge of technologies so advanced they seemed almost otherworldly. These were the blueprints of human ingenuity at its most audacious, ideas that stretched the limits of imagination and challenged the notion of what the ancient world could accomplish. Within the library's walls, scholars glimpsed inventions that modern minds would struggle to reconstruct. Some scrolls described complex machines powered by water, wind, and air, capable of performing tasks that centuries later would require engines and mechanics. Automata moved with intricate precision, powered by gears, weights, and counterbalances, mimicking human or animal motion. Scholars speculated on flying machines, on mechanisms that could lift, rotate, or even propel objects across distances. While many designs were theoretical, their sophistication was undeniable, suggesting engineers began exploring principles that would not resurface until the industrial age. Other texts ventured into optics and energy, hinting at ways to manipulate light, heat, and motion. Mirrors and lenses were described with exacting detail, perhaps for enhancing observation, signaling, or focusing sunlight. Some scrolls referenced methods that might generate force from natural elements, implying an understanding of energy conversion far beyond common knowledge. Even basic physics was explored in ways that would astonish later scientists, with careful measurements, experiments, and speculative designs documented for scholars. Some theories were almost fantastical, bordering on proto-science fiction. There were descriptions of devices capable of underwater exploration and vessels designed for travel. Engineers studying these scrolls faced a tantalizing challenge. Could these ideas ever be realized, or were they exercises of minds imagining a future? Lost technologies were also embedded in mathematical knowledge. Calculations allowed the design of sundials, astrolabes, and planetary models that predict motion. Some texts suggested mechanisms for measuring time, angles, or distances that were elegant, precise, and far ahead of their era. Yet there was a shadow over this brilliance. The library's obsession with collecting every scroll meant some technologies were known only to a few. Many designs were cryptic, encoded in complex diagrams or obscure language. The full potential of these inventions may never have been realized. Could they have harnessed steam, electricity, or hydraulics? We cannot know for certain. But the scrolls suggest a bold truth. Human ingenuity defies limits. The library's role was not merely preservation. It was stewardship over ideas that might transform the world, if only someone could unlock them. In the quiet, shadowed halls, one is left to wonder, what inventions did humanity nearly realize in antiquity, only for them to vanish? What lost knowledge still waits, hidden in scrolls that may never be found, holding secrets that could rewrite history itself? The Library of Alexandria was not merely a collection of scrolls. It was the beating heart of intellectual civilization, a beacon of the ancient world. Its influence extended far beyond marble halls. It shaped politics, philosophy, science, and culture across continents. To understand the library's true role is to understand the extraordinary reach of human curiosity and the fragility of wisdom when concentrated in one place. At its core, the library was a hub of connectivity. Ships arriving from Greece, Egypt, Persia, and India carried not just goods, but ideas. The library collected these ideas, translated them, and preserved them, creating a network of knowledge unparalleled in history. Scholars from disparate civilizations could study texts side by side, comparing approaches to mathematics, medicine, or astronomy. This synthesis of information allowed ideas to cross-pollinate, sparking innovations that might never have emerged in isolation. Alexandria became a crossroads of intellect, a city where knowledge was currency, and curiosity was the most prized possession. Politically, the library served as a formidable instrument of influence. By housing the wisdom of conquered lands, the Ptolemies positioned themselves as universal patrons. They could access strategic insights from military tactics to trade techniques, agricultural methods, and navigation charts from across the known world. Possessing knowledge meant wielding power, and the library's resources gave Alexandria an intellectual dominance that rivaled its economic and military stature. Rulers, diplomats, and scholars alike understood that to engage with the library was to engage with the pulse of civilization itself. Culturally, the library was a crucible of creativity. poets, and philosophers drew inspiration from scrolls detailing myths and histories of distant lands. Egyptian religious texts mingled with Greek metaphysics, and Babylonian astronomy informed Greek cosmology, revealing the universality of human thought. The library also fostered the next generation of scholars. Students could access a wealth of knowledge far beyond their native traditions. They studied geometry alongside medical texts, learning to see connections where none seemed obvious, cultivating intellectual leaders for the future. Yet the library's prominence made it vulnerable. Its centralization of knowledge was extraordinary, but it created a single point of risk. Scholars were acutely aware that fire, war, or political upheaval could annihilate centuries of accumulated wisdom in an instant. Every scroll copied was a fragile thread holding the fabric of human understanding together, a silent tension between treasure and loss. Beyond its influence, the library became a symbol, testament to humanity's relentless pursuit of understanding and the belief that learning transcends borders. The Library of Alexandria was the embodiment of human aspiration. Its scrolls informed empires and inspired minds across history. By concentrating the world's wisdom in one place, it became a target, a treasure whose loss would echo across time. Its brilliance illuminated the ancient world, but the shadow of impermanence always loomed, hinting at the fragility of even our greatest achievements. For centuries, the Library of Alexandria had stood as an unassailable fortress of knowledge. Its scrolls, meticulously copied, translated, and preserved. Scholars moved quietly among its marble halls, debating, calculating, and observing the universe. Yet even the greatest monuments of human ambition are not immune to the forces of time, envy, and politics. And as the library expanded its reach, subtle signs of fragility began to appear that would foreshadow the devastating events yet to come. The first signs were almost imperceptible. Political unrest in the city occasionally disrupted the quiet rhythm of scholarly life. The Ptolemaic rulers, who had once fiercely protected the library, began to face internal struggles for power. Advisors and generals suggested that scrolls could never match the tangible gains of wealth or military conquest. While the library remained officially revered, the attention and resources it received slowly began to wane. Scholars themselves sensed subtle changes. Restrictions on access became more frequent, and political oversight grew heavier. The freedom to explore controversial or radical ideas was increasingly curtailed. In hushed tones, they speculated about what might happen if the city ever fell into chaos. Economic pressures also began to affect the library. Ships bringing scrolls sometimes arrived late or not at all. The careful system of cataloging became strained as resources dwindled and scribes were overworked. Scrolls, delicate and perishable, risked decay if neglected. No scholar could monitor them all. For the first time, guardians faced the terrifying possibility that some texts could vanish even without a fire or invasion. Tensions within the scholarly community grew. Competing factions emerged, each vying to control or claim credit for discoveries. Scholars who pushed boundaries occasionally found themselves censored, a reminder that human ambition could threaten the pursuit of truth. Foreign powers and local authorities understood that within these walls lay knowledge that could influence politics and trade. The very richness of the library made it a potential prize, and what is most valuable is often the most at risk. Rumors began to circulate. scrolls lost or misplaced, rare texts stolen, and fires in nearby buildings that threatened the city. While minor incidents, they were harbingers of a deeper fragility. Scholars wrote urgently, warning of the consequences of neglect. But the vastness of the collection and the complexity of the library's operations made precautions nearly impossible. Even as the library thrived intellectually, a subtle shadow had fallen over it. The city of Alexandria, for all its grandeur, was no longer an entirely safe haven. The library, once seemingly eternal, faced the first tremors of a disaster that would eventually shake it to its foundations. For those who understood the value of what had been amassed, these were warnings of a tragedy yet to unfold. The Library of Alexandria had reached a tipping point, testing whether humanity's wisdom could survive the chaos it now faced. The air in Alexandria had always carried a hum of curiosity, the scent of ink and papyrus mingling with the warm Mediterranean breeze. But that hum was shattered by the first whispers of catastrophe. Smoke curling over the city, flames licking at wooden docks, and rumors that the library, the eternal heart of human knowledge, was in danger. For centuries, scholars had feared this moment, imagining the destruction of centuries of accumulated wisdom. And yet, when the fires came, even the most vigilant minds could not fully grasp the scale of the loss. The Library of Alexandria was designed to withstand ordinary threats. Its marble halls, stone shelves, and secure storage chambers were intended to protect scrolls from decay and minor accidents. But fire, unpredictable and merciless, was a different enemy entirely. Scholars later recounted that the first blaze was likely accidental, a spark from nearby warfare, a mismanaged torch, or perhaps a citywide riot spilling flames across the streets. Whatever the origin, the fire spread with terrifying speed, devouring scrolls, manuscripts, and centuries of careful observation in hours, leaving behind only ash and smoke where once stood towers of knowledge. Eyewitness accounts, sparse and fragmented, describe a scene of chaos and despair. Scholars rushed through smoke-filled corridors, clutching scrolls to their chests, desperately trying to rescue even fragments of texts. Some were successful, preserving copies of crucial works, while others watched in horror as priceless manuscripts disintegrated into ash. Flames consumed records of mathematics, medicine, astronomy, philosophy, and engineering ideas that may have been centuries ahead of their time. The destruction was not limited to a single fire. Alexandria faced multiple instances of turmoil, riots, invasions, and civil unrest, and each incident inflicted damage upon the library. Fires might have started intentionally during periods of political upheaval, as conquerors sought to assert dominance or eliminate knowledge. Yet whether accidental or deliberate, the effect was devastating. The city's intellectual heart was being scorched, its lifeblood reduced to smoke. The impact on the scholarly community was profound. Philosophers, astronomers, and mathematicians could only stand in disbelief as entire collections vanished. Some tried to rebuild, painstakingly recreating lost scrolls from memory or secondary sources. Others abandoned the library in despair, knowing that no amount of effort could replace the irretrievable loss. The fires created a chilling awareness. Knowledge, no matter how carefully preserved, was fragile, and human civilization could lose what it treasured most in a single night. The scrolls themselves were particularly vulnerable. Made from papyrus, they were susceptible not only to flames, but to smoke, and humidity. In some cases, only fragments survived slivers of information tantalizingly incomplete, offering glimpses of discoveries that remain out of reach. Mathematical proofs, medical techniques, all partially or wholly obliterated, left gaps in history that scholars continue to speculate about today. Yet, amidst the devastation, a haunting paradox emerged. The fires, while consuming knowledge, also highlighted its extraordinary value. Witnesses recorded the desperation and grief of those who tried to save scrolls, emphasizing the library's unmatched significance. Every effort to salvage a single manuscript, every copied fragment, was a testament to the human desire to preserve understanding. Even in ruin, the library's influence endured, reminding the world of the power of knowledge and the cost of losing it. The fires that damaged the Library of Alexandria marked the beginning of an era of uncertainty. What knowledge had been lost forever? What inventions, discoveries, and insights vanished into ash? And what secrets, only partially preserved in surviving fragments, continued to whisper across the centuries, waiting for someone to piece them together? The flames consumed more than scrolls. They consumed the very sense of security humanity had in its intellectual heritage, leaving a stark reminder that even the greatest achievements are impermanent. In the aftermath, as smoke cleared and scholars mourned, a chilling question lingered. Could humanity ever truly recover what had been lost? The fires had not only destroyed scrolls, they had ignited a mystery, one that would echo through history, challenging every future generation to wonder what secrets had disappeared forever in the heart of Alexandria. The fires that swept through Alexandria left behind more than smoke and ash. They left a void, a haunting silence, where once the wisdom of the ancient world had thrived. The scrolls that vanished carried with them not just knowledge, but the potential to transform civilizations. What may have been lost forever in that inferno is impossible to quantify. Yet history offers tantalizing glimpses of discoveries, inventions, and insights that vanished without a trace. Humanity was left to stumble forward centuries later, often reinventing what had already been known. Consider the sciences. The library housed treatises on mathematics, mechanics, and astronomy that may have been so advanced that even today we struggle to reconstruct their scope. Scrolls describing principles of hydraulics, automation, and engineering hint at technologies that could have revolutionized ancient life. Automata capable of performing tasks, mechanical devices powered by water or air, and detailed instructions for sophisticated machines may have been lost forever. We can only imagine the inventions that might have changed transportation, construction, or industry long before the Renaissance. Medicine, too, suffered immeasurable losses. Egyptian papyri detailed surgical techniques, pharmacological remedies, and holistic approaches to health, while Greek texts explored anatomy, disease, and the human mind. Perhaps cures for illnesses we still struggle to treat vanished in the smoke. The scrolls contained more than practical treatments. They preserved a deep understanding of the human body and the natural world, insights that might have accelerated the development of science and medicine by centuries. Even philosophy and ethics were at risk of extinction. Debates on the nature of existence, morality, and the universe were lost along with their records. The ideas of brilliant minds, carefully argued and debated, may have disappeared before they could influence later thinkers. Concepts of governance, justice, and the human condition were forever altered by this absence. The library's destruction severed the continuity of intellectual progress, leaving gaps in our understanding of ancient civilizations. The loss extended to history itself. Records of distant lands, forgotten civilizations, and ancient events may have vanished completely. Some scrolls described peoples, cities, and technologies that are unknown from any other source. In their absence, centuries of human experience were erased, leaving modern historians to piece together fragments. What we know of the ancient world is necessarily incomplete. What we do not know may be far greater. The mysteries of astronomy, mathematics, and natural philosophy were also obscured. Scrolls may have contained precise calculations of planetary motion that would not be rediscovered until the scientific revolution. Principles of physics, optics, and chemistry may have been documented centuries before humanity could replicate them. Our ancestors glimpsed truths that modern science had to rediscover through trial, error, and centuries of painstaking study. Yet, perhaps the most profound loss is intangible: the ideas that could have reshaped human thoughts. Concepts of morality, governance, spirituality, and the human mind may have existed in writings that no longer survive. Entire frameworks of understanding vanished, leaving humanity to rediscover insights that once existed in fullness. The Library of Alexandria reminds us that knowledge is fragile and that its loss can echo across generations. For every scroll that survived, countless others disappeared forever. What wisdom might have transformed human history had it not been consumed by fire, neglect, or the tides of politics? As we imagine the scrolls that never made it, we are left with both awe and sorrow, a reminder of what has been irretrievably lost. The true scale of the library's legacy becomes clear: not only what it preserved, but also the vast depth of what may have vanished forever. Even after the fires and chaos that ravaged Alexandria, whispers of surviving scrolls persisted. The library may have been damaged, its treasures reduced to ash, but the story of the missing scrolls became a legend in itself, a puzzle that has haunted historians, archaeologists, and scholars for centuries. What survived? What vanished? And what knowledge might still be hidden, waiting for the right mind to uncover it? The mystery begins with the sheer scale of the library's collection. Ancient accounts describe hundreds of thousands of scrolls. Each scroll contained discoveries gathered from every corner of the known world: Greek philosophers, Egyptian priests, and Babylonian astronomers. Every civilization contributed to this unparalleled repository. Yet when fires and political upheaval struck, entire sections vanished almost overnight. Some scrolls were destroyed beyond recognition, while others disappeared without a trace, leaving tantalizing gaps in the historical record. What makes the missing scrolls so enigmatic is that some references to them survive in other texts. Ancient writers occasionally mention scrolls on forgotten topics, unique theories, or radical inventions. Yet the scrolls themselves are nowhere to be found. Did they survive in private collections, hidden in secret archives, or were they permanently lost, their contents fading from human memory forever? The tantalizing hints fuel speculation to this day. Some historians suggest that scrolls were secretly removed before the fires, hidden by scholars who feared the destruction. There are stories of texts smuggled to monasteries, buried in tombs, or transported across the Mediterranean to safer cities. In some cases, fragments may have resurfaced centuries later, influencing thinkers in subtle and indirect ways. Plato, Pythagoras, and later Renaissance scholars may have unknowingly been guided by the echoes of knowledge that originated in Alexandria. Other accounts are darker. Some scrolls may have been deliberately destroyed to suppress knowledge. Religious authorities or rival rulers might have considered certain ideas too dangerous or heretical to survive. The scrolls that vanished represent a sinister aspect of human history, the deliberate erasure of knowledge. Some may have described technological inventions centuries ahead of their time, or astronomical observations that could have advanced science. The library's fate also raises questions about human responsibility. Centralizing so much knowledge created a vulnerability. The missing scrolls are a haunting reminder that the survival of knowledge is never guaranteed. Even today, the idea that a fragment might surface in some forgotten archive keeps the mystery alive. The Library of Alexandria did not die with its flames. It persists in the question of what is missing. And in pondering these missing texts, we are reminded of the enduring human desire to reclaim what has been lost. Amid the ash, smoke, and devastation of the Library of Alexandria, one question continues to haunt historians and dreamers alike. Could some knowledge have survived, despite fires, invasions, and centuries of neglect? Fragments of scrolls and copies of texts suggest not all was lost. Perhaps the library's wisdom endured in subtle ways, shaping the world long after the city itself faded into legend. One avenue of survival was through duplication. Many scholars had meticulously copied texts, translating works from Egyptian hieroglyphs into Greek. They translated Babylonian cuneiform into papyrus, and Sanskrit into more accessible languages to preserve the wisdom of the ages. Copies sent to distant libraries and monasteries may have preserved snippets of knowledge that would otherwise have vanished, while the originals may have burned. These reproductions carried ideas across borders, sometimes influencing civilizations far from Alexandria. Trade and travel also offered a lifeline. Alexandria was a hub of maritime commerce, and its scrolls were sought after by scholars and rulers. It is likely that some scrolls were shipped elsewhere, either as gifts, acquisitions, or strategic transfers to foreign cities. In Rome, Constantinople, or Antioch, ancient texts could survive, integrated into other libraries and surviving the ravages of time. Every scroll that escaped Alexandria became a thread connecting lost knowledge to a new lineage of thinkers. Oral transmission was another channel. Philosophers and mathematicians who studied at the library carried their knowledge wherever they went. They taught students and wrote new works inspired by their studies, preserving the essence of the library's wisdom. In medicine, astronomy, and philosophy, echoes of Alexandria's brilliance can be traced through successive generations. Yet survival was never guaranteed. Many texts were incomplete, fragmentary, or misinterpreted during transmission across the centuries. Copying errors or the decay of materials could distort ideas, making the surviving knowledge only a shadow of its former self. The library's knowledge became a tantalizing puzzle, glimpses of extraordinary insight scattered across time and space. Some historians speculate that mathematical theories and astronomical observations from Alexandria may have reached the Islamic world and beyond. These concepts potentially inspired thinkers who shaped the Renaissance and the scientific revolution? Could Leonardo da Vinci, Copernicus, or Newton have unknowingly inherited fragments of wisdom first preserved in Alexandria? It is a question impossible to answer, yet endlessly compelling. Some knowledge survived in unexpected forms, like architectural techniques. Even folk remedies or navigation techniques could be distant descendants of the scrolls once housed in the library. While fires and neglect could destroy physical objects, the ideas themselves, captured in thought and dialogue, could endure. Every surviving text is a thread linking the past to the present, asking how much humanity is still waiting to rediscover. Centuries have passed since the smoke and ashes of Alexandria settled over the Mediterranean, yet the library continues to haunt the imaginations of historians. It is a testament to human ambition, curiosity, and the relentless pursuit of understanding, representing both our greatest achievements and our most profound vulnerabilities. For historians, the library is a tantalizing puzzle. Its exact size, contents, and organization remain shrouded in mystery, with ancient accounts varying wildly. The uncertainty fuels research, inspiring scholars to piece together fragments and reconstruct the intellectual world of Alexandria from the faint echoes history has left behind. The library embodied the intersection of civilizations. It was a place where Greek philosophy met Egyptian mysticism and Babylonian astronomy mingled with Indian mathematics. Knowledge from across the known world converged in a single sanctuary, a hub where cultures interacted through the exchange of ideas centuries before globalization. Beyond its collections, the library fascinates because of its potential. What medical cures, technological innovations, or philosophical insights were lost to history? Every surviving fragment sparks speculation. Could humanity have achieved certain discoveries centuries earlier? Could it have accelerated the development of science and engineering? Tales of scholars laboring through the night, translating obscure texts and debating cosmic mysteries, give life to a place that no longer exists. The triumphs, rivalries, and obsessions of these thinkers make the library's history as compelling as any epic, showing a living community of contributors. Its dramatic destruction adds another layer of fascination. Fires, political turmoil, and centuries of neglect transformed this beacon of wisdom into a cautionary tale. The fragility of the library mirrors the fragility of knowledge itself, offering lessons about stewardship and the responsibilities of preserving civilization's precious resources. It has become a symbol of human potential, the ultimate what-if in history. What discoveries might have reshaped our world if the scrolls survived? The library tantalizes with a universe of ideas that challenges us to consider the limits of knowledge and the vastness of human ambition. Finally, the library endures because it continues to inspire exploration. Historians and archaeologists remain captivated by the possibility of uncovering lost fragments. Each discovery offers a connection to a civilization that sought to gather all human understanding under one roof, keeping the pursuit of history alive. The fascination with the Library of Alexandria is eternal. It reminds us of what humanity can achieve when intellect, curiosity, and ambition converge. The library lives on, not in marble or papyrus, but in the questions it leaves behind and the imagination it continues to ignite. The Library of Alexandria, once the crown jewel of human knowledge, now exists largely in memory, myth, and the whispers of history. its scrolls, burned, lost, or scattered, may never be fully recovered. Yet the true magnitude of its legacy lies not merely in what survived, but in what was lost. What wisdom vanished forever, and how might it have shaped the course of civilization if it had endured? Imagine the scrolls that perished in those flames. Texts on mathematics that could have revealed the secrets of the universe centuries before modern science. Engineering treatises that might have sparked a technological revolution long before the industrial age. And medical records containing cures and techniques. These were not trivial works, they were glimpses of human ingenuity at its pinnacle, reflections of minds daring enough to explore the unknown. And with their destruction, the world lost not just knowledge, but potential, innovation, and understanding. The library also contained philosophical and moral insights, arguments about the nature of existence, the human soul, and the structure of societies. Imagine ethical frameworks and metaphysical theories that might have guided civilizations differently, fostering wisdom over warfare, balance over tyranny. Each scroll, now vanished, was a story untold, a thought unshared, a possibility that slipped into oblivion. And yet, despite the losses, the library's spirit persists. Fragments of scrolls and oral teachings, carried by fleeing scholars, have trickled through history. Echoes of Alexandria's wisdom survive in the works of later thinkers, from Greek philosophers to Renaissance scientists, shaping our understanding. Its legacy reminds us that knowledge, even when imperiled, can endure in unexpected ways, influencing the world across generations. But the lost wisdom also serves as a haunting reminder of impermanence. Civilization's treasures, no matter how magnificent, are fragile. The story of the library is a cautionary tale that knowledge is not static, and that its preservation requires vigilance, dedication, and care. Even today, the mystery fuels imagination. What exactly was contained in the scrolls we may never see. The library may no longer stand, but its power lies in its absence, prompting us to reflect, to question, and to explore. It reminds us that the pursuit of knowledge is eternal, and that human curiosity will always seek the answers that elude us. In the end, the Library of Alexandria is more than a physical place. It is a symbol of humanity's longing to understand the cosmos. Its story teaches us to cherish knowledge, to seek truth, and to remember that the greatest treasures are ideas and imagination. As we close this chapter, let us carry forward its spirit, to be curious, to ask questions, and to never stop searching for understanding. The library may be gone, but its whispers remain, guiding us through history, mystery, and the vast expanse of human potential. And as the sun sets over the ancient world, casting long shadows, we are reminded that some mysteries are eternal. Good night.